Hello, everybody. This is Megan,
And this is Alana.
and welcome to Tea Time Crimes.
Here we are, where I have some tea and Megan have some crime.
I have crime and strep throat, but I'm here.
Oh, yikes.
Haven't had that in a while. Nice throwback to elementary school.
Oh,
But thank God for penicillin, which I say more than once
yeah.
throughout this.
Love me some fungus.
Gosh, it's just a miracle.
It is.
All right. Well, do you have any big news, or do you want to hop into that tea review?
Not really big news. I played my first rugby match after I injured myself, so that was really exciting for me.
How'd it go?
It went well. We won. It was not a pretty game, but my leg was good throughout. And I mean, my calf's a little tight today, but that's, I guess, to be expected. But you'll appreciate this. So I rode in to the game with the coach and then got back and Chris is picking me up. But she turns on TV. She says, "This is how me and my fiance unwind." And then she turns on Golden Girls. So
Yes.
yeah. Kindred spirit.
Yeah. Hello. I wish I was there for that part. All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, what do you have for a tea?
Oh, right. I have a cozy cottage tea from our friends at Sunshine Cottage.
Hey.
I'm loving the weather lately. It's been nice, brisk mornings and then beautiful days for the most part. Sometimes there's a rainstorm, so it just makes me want to have the window open, read next to the window. No, in a chair or a bed with my little tea. And so this felt apt. Okay. It is a black tea with walnut, cinnamon, rose, and jasmine. So let's dive in here. I just put a splash of milk in. It smells like cinnamon milk.
Okay. That's yummy.
Oh, that's really good. The cinnamon and the vanilla blend so well together. I'm trying to get a hint of the rose, and I think it's there, and it's infused into the vanilla, which is quite nice.
That is nice.
This is really good. It tastes like a cinnamon roll, honestly. It's just fucking amazing. Love a good cinnamon roll. Well, I'm going to give it a cinnamony thumbs up.
There you go. It sounds delicious. I feel like I would like
It's
all
really good.
of their teas, and I need to get some.
Yeah, she does an amazing job blending.
Awesome. What's the name of it again?
It is Cozy Cottage Tea.
Cute. Did you tell me? Was there a description?
It was just the ingredients, and then it said
Just ingredients
to create a truly comforting blend.
Awesome. Well, you will enjoy that tea for this episode, I'm sure.
Will.
Are you ready?
I don't know.
Yeah, you're ready. Okay. So here we go. Frances and Anne, although sometimes called Mary, but I'm going to go with Anne Blandy, started out as middle-class folks, incredibly respected, which is the best you can hope for. Everybody wants respect, back in the day especially. Mrs. Blandy was described as an emblem of chastity and virtue.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, we're in the 1700s. Okay. So that is the highest compliment a woman could hope for.
Yeah.
Even 2-time Nobel Prize winner Marie Curie isn't.
Yeah, forget her.
Isn't beating that.
Let her die
nobody.
By poison.
Yeah, that doesn't matter. Chastity and virtue. That's what we're shooting for right about now.
Boring. I mean, good for you.
Mrs. Blandy has it. Frances was a lawyer as well as the town clerk.
What?
So the couple lived, in Henley-on-Thames in Oxfordshire.
Oh.
And they were married in the fall of 1719.
Lovely.
Yeah. It's believed their only child, Mary, was born the following year. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Which is why I went with Anne as the mother's name, because it's just too confusing. And she was born the same year as Anne Bonny, our BFF, was captured.
Oh, love her.
I know. I know.
Did you see my celebration post of her on our Facebook
totally
for
did.
St. Patrick's Day?
Absolutely. So it seems that although Frances and Anne may have come from middle class, Francis was doing very well. And his practice and the added prestige of being the town clerk, he had his eyes on moving up the social ladder, and they were living in privilege for sure, just as it was. They lived in a large house on Hart Street, and Mary received an education at home.
No cesspools.
I don't know, but whatever the latest plumbing technology was, they had it, right? By all accounts, she was considered very bright, or at least well-read, because her intelligence might come into question later. Being the only child of the Blandys, though, she was sufficiently spoiled by both her parents.
Sure.
Yeah. But she was well-liked and considered quite the catch.
Oh.
Also all that matters these days. However, as the time of betrothment approached, there were a few bees in Mary's bonnet. One, her father was super picky.
Oh, boy.
He wanted Mary to marry into nobility or
He's
royalty,
trying to move up.
Man's making moves, all right? And he's trying to position himself.
He's using her.
Like many people at this time, he saw this as a stepping stone. This marriage could elevate their entire family for generations to come. And I could only assume that it's more intense when you only have one shot and one daughter.
Yeah.
So like if Mr. Blandy had a montage, it'd be M&M's.
Stop.
You only have one shot playing in the background. Do not miss this chance, Mr. Blandy.
Oh, boy.
One opportunity.
Poor Mary.
I know. Another consideration here is that Mary had survived smallpox as a child. So her face was scarred from the disease. And I could not decipher if that really factored into things at all. My take on it was that maybe Mary and Frances were more self-conscious of it than anybody else who cared. Yes, ma'am, you have a question.
Hi there. Does smallpox scar worse than chickenpox? I would imagine. Because it was like a worse disease, right?
I think it is more, there are more of them.
Okay, because like I have like probably 3. I have like one on my face and like a few. Oh, God, kids these days don't have it. It's just crazy to think about.
Like, I know.
It makes you feel like we're living in the olden times.
Like you came from the 1800s.
I'm Claire, and remember how that's how she indicates.
In Outlander, she's like, I got this. I can help the smallpox folks. Don't worry about it. Yeah. So I don't know if it was that they were self-conscious, or if the actual suitors
didn't like it.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Was back then very chalky, I bet.
Well, you're not gonna when your face is scarred. I don't think it's gonna be harder to cover it.
It's tough back then, that's for sure.
Now, Frances is overcompensating by offering a very large dowry of 10,000 pounds, which is an enormous amount of money. Yeah.
That's fucking what in the 1700s?
Right. It's basically like $1 million. He's a millionaire, right?
He really wants to move up. Desperate.
But he doesn't even have that money, by the way.
Whoopsies.
Yeah.
Too desperate.
Yeah. So this kind of cash maybe doesn't have the intended effect he's hoping for. Because let's put it this way. Love or Mary's feelings are not factored into this decision when that much money is at stake.
Of course not.
So whatever the reason, Mary had choices. There were several men, but each one was rejected by Frances.
Oh, come on, Francie.
They were not good enough. And I'm not talking like the local men down at the docks were like, hey, I got a chance at $10,000. Let me give it a shot. I'm talking military men, whatever a pharmacist is called in those days.
Yeah, the chemist.
Learned men. He was like, nope, not good enough. The family would even travel to London or Bath for months at a time.
To show her off.
For which is basically Tinder live and in person.
Oh my God, I'm thinking of Bridgerton now.
Yeah, there were multiple balls each week.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And the dress bill was through the roof.
I'm sure.
Frances saw it as, it was a business expense.
This is Bridgerton.
Yeah, something he needed to do in order to catch himself a good son-in-law.
Use that fangirl.
Well, it was at one of these dances that Mary actually danced with the Prince of Wales at the time, which was a
Oh.
real feather in her cap. I mean, people are still talking about it today. I just did.
You did. It's true. I heard
Honestly, Mary seems to enjoy herself at these things. I'm guessing she's an extrovert because people like her. She's charming.
Yeah.
She's considered intelligent. She's well-mannered. She's interesting to talk to. But just like you said, these are 1700s roles. So the best she can do is fan flirt from across the room.
Yep.
So you're not really getting deep into like a person's moral character or even maybe what they like. You're just batting your eyes and fanning yourself. So I'm not sure. I don't know how deep these combos went. But Mary had a ton of interest. They were all, again, not good enough by Francis's standards. She was briefly engaged to a captain in the military, but he was pulled for battle, and for some reason that meant the wedding was called off. I was surprised by that because I would think that would hurry up the wedding.
Yeah.
But that's why I think there might be something else there. But anyway, that one went away quickly.
Damn.
And this went on for years.
What? That's bad because like you have a short period of time as a woman.
Exactly. So gasp, Mary's in her mid to late 20s.
Francis, you're blowing it.
And not married.
Oh, Spencer.
Yeah. So when William Henry Cranston shows up, he's not only the son of a Scottish lord, but he was dressed to look like nobility. And I don't know about Mary, but Mr. Blandy fell in love, head over heels. He allowed William to stay with them.
Whoa.
For a time when you can't even be alone in a room for fear your hands might touch.
Right. Or your ankle's going to show. Watch out.
He's basically they're living together. Do you know what I mean?
That's wild.
I know he's there, but they're in the same house for months. And this whole time, Mr. Blandy's parading William around to all of his friends.
Okay.
Look at my son-in-law.
Yeah.
He's from nobility, in case you were wondering. And Mary is apparently pleased as well, although in retrospect, I don't know how much of it is just like, finally, I can get married and fulfill my life's purpose as a woman in the 1700s. Or if she's actually like, this guy's cool. Not sure.
I mean, probably has a cute accent.
Well, William was born in 1714 in Scotland to Lord and Lady Cranston.
Oh, love it.
Which is the big ticket item on Mr. Blandy's must-have list.
Do you think Bryan Cranston's ancestors?
Maybe.
Okay.
He is also age appropriate, which is a plus for Mary.
Yeah,
I know, right? He's only 6 years older.
Okay.
Thank the heavens he's not 87 years old. He is not, however, the most handsome man.
Uh-oh.
Now, interestingly enough, he also has smallpox scars, which makes me think that probably a ton of people did at that time, and maybe it wasn't a big deal, and maybe it was just something Mary or Francis were self-conscious about. But in the book that I use, it's in the source notes, The First Forensic Hanging by Summer Strevens, she shares the description of William from her research. Quote, his eyes are small and weak, his eyebrows sandy, and his shape no way genteel. His legs are clumsy, and he has nothing in the least elegant in his manner.
Rude.
Another article I found said he was also cross-eyed with a, quote, hideous muddy complexion. So I'm not sure if the passion is raging.
Got it.
That chemistry might need Marie Curie's help a little bit. You know what I mean? I'm not sure, but maybe Mary's into it. I don't know. I'm just painting a picture. With the introduction of William, we can see that Mr. Blandy's main goal is to climb the social ladder. Because on top of this description, by the way, William's maybe not the nicest gentleman I've ever heard about. Okay, so I'm throwing that out there because obviously there's more to a person than how they appear.
Yeah, of course. Beauty and the Beast, ever heard about that story?
This is the face of a mean man. Okay, so that's what I'm throwing out there.
Got it.
He's not tricking her with his, movie star looks. Or I don't know what they'd be at the time.
There's no attic in the closet. Nope. Painting in the attic.
What?
Dorian Gray. Never mind.
Anyway, so because the reason that you could tell that Mr. Blandy's goal is to climb the social ladder is because William is also not wealthy. So Mary's had tons of other people come who make more money. And he said no.
But it's just the title.
It's just the title. In fact, William's in debt.
Perfect.
And he's living off a military salary, which is pretty modest.
What a great start to a life together.
But the couple is headed towards a marriage and a prosperous arrangement for all. William's been at the Blandy house for free requesting the finest food, by the way,
Sure.
for the last 6 months when a
6
wrench was thrown into this blissful union. Turns out
his parents aren't lords.
William's already married with a kid.
Oh!
So you see what I'm saying now? So you've got this non-elegant, clumsy-legged man walking into your house, by the way, already married. Now, to William's partial credit, it's thought that Mary knew this at the time of the proposal, that he actually told her. But what he said really downplayed the situation. He said there had been a private ceremony and it was not legal, and he would take care of the matter and be free to marry her.
Oh, what's that called?
So great that you told her, but read between the lines, Mary. He's abandoning another family, no matter which way you look at it, right?
It's a really nice characteristic.
Yeah. Now, William had married Anne Murray on May 22nd of 1744. Now, a member of the clergy and another woman were present at the ceremony. But for some reason, William felt because they didn't know him that they don't count as witnesses. He then lived with Anne and wrote letters to inform his family that he had been married and they were expecting a child. A daughter was born on February 19th, 1745. But even though William had disclosed the marriage to his family, he required Anne to keep it secret.
That's never good. Never, ever good.
Never good for a couple of reasons. One, because she was Catholic and he was Protestant.
Oh.
Two, Anne also had family who were Jacobites, and William actually fought in the Battle of Culloden.
Oh my God, we're in Outlander right now.
I know, right? Which we only know from Outlander because we're history buffs. Which was the following year. He told Anne to reveal their marriage would hurt his chance at promotions in the military.
That's cute.
But Mr. Blandy did not know about this marriage. Even if Mary knew about parts of it, he did not know anything about it at the time of the proposal, and he was not as forgiving as Mary. He was pretty ticked.
Yeah, I would be too.
William calmed the concerns and said that, the woman was a liar and they had never been married. And the court would surely throw out this preposterous claim and he would be free to wed Mary. Yep. He told Mr. Blandy that she was just a mistress. And although they had discussed marriage, he had made it clear that she was to convert her religion in order to marry him, which she had not done. So he refused to marry her. Again, to me, yuck.
Yeah.
Even if that's the truth, gross.
Correct.
Anyway, the courts actually sided with Anne, deeming the marriage legal, and she was his lawful wife.
Oh.
Because Anne had kept handwritten letters from William regarding the wedding and why it was to be kept secret.
Smart
Mic
girl.
drop, get it.
Smart girl.
This is huge for this time because to have this declared in William's favor would mean she was probably destitute and had an illegitimate child.
It would ruin her life.
Ruin her life. So she got after it.
Good for you.
On March 1st, 1748, Anne Murray won her case and her daughter was declared legitimate.
Whew.
Big win.
Thank goodness.
Upon winning, Anne then wrote Mary a letter with a copy of the court ruling enclosed. Oh, no, I love it. I don't think she did it vindictively. I think she did it as a warning.
Oh.
I think she was like, FYI, I don't know what he's telling you, but this is the actual truth.
Okay.
Here it is. Now, in addition to, winning the ruling, she was also awarded money for her care and for her daughter's care from William's salary, which put his already modest salary in pretty big jeopardy.
Not great.
This was at the same time that he got a pay decrease because the military was kind of like chilling for a second and they're like, we don't need to pay you. Mr. Blandy is pissed. William's lie could really hurt their social standing and he has a whole scheme here, right?
The irony. Could have had a better man.
Mary, on the other hand, is just head over heels at this point. She's all in for William, I know. I don't know how much it is that she loves him or it's just she was so close to being married that she couldn't let it go.
Yeah.
So still confident that he could free himself of this pesky first marriage, William tells Mary, I'm going to appeal it. This is ridiculous. I need to travel to London for work and I'm going to take care of it and we're going to be together. He's really needing that 10,000 pounds.
Oh, sure.
But even though Mary is content to wait, Mr. Blandy is turning sour by the moment. he reluctantly allows the engagement to continue with the understanding that this legal trouble will be cleared up and it will be cleared up quickly.
Yeah.
While in London, William writes Mary constantly when he's not busy sleeping with his actual mistress, who he also fathered a child with.
Cool.
Yeah. So like those clumsy legs are
That's
just
nice.
all over town. You know what I mean?
Wow. Cool.
When William is away, Mary and her mother travel to the country where Mrs. Blandy becomes very ill.
Oh no.
William, always the gentleman, obviously, returns to see his dying mother-in-law to be. And upon his arrival, Mrs. Blandy recovers, which for some reason she credits William to.
Oh boy.
I'm like, okay, did he show up with an antibiotic? Because if he didn't, then it's just dumb luck.
Yeah.
And yikes. Now, Mr. Blandy insists that they go back to Hart Street for the recovery, mostly because medical costs are cheaper there.
Okay.
And he's a little bit of a cheapskate, probably because he's like, listen, I'm already in over my head with this $10,000 dowry.
Yeah.
Like, we need to pinch pennies and let's get back. So William stays because he's boistered his mother-in-law's to be spirits so intensely. He stays and for another 6 months rent-free.
Jesus.
So think about that. This has been going on for a long time, and they've basically been living together.
I'm just really frustrated with Francis for putting off these other men who like might have been similar social status, but like would provide for Mary and make sure like, I mean, you never know. Like they could all have their own histories and past, but still like I'm a little frustrated with him.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, I assume Mary wants to have children.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the goal.
Like she wants to start her life.
She can't. So the very proper notes of the time allude to tension in the home, but they only use descriptors like Mr. Blandy was rude.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was a Jerry Springer situation or if Mr. Blandy was like, I will not take tea in the parlor and like went upstairs. But tensions are high for 1700s. But the more Mr. Blandy hates William, the more Mrs. Blandy loves him. He continues to charm her.
Oh my God, is he going to sleep with her?
No, girls. Oh. He even gives her £40 to clear a debt for fear that Mr. Blandy would find out.
Oh.
I don't know where he got the money, but he did it.
Interesting.
Yeah. And at the same time, William is pushing Mary to have a secret wedding because that worked out so great for him the first time.
Right. Real smart.
And there's some debate whether or not that actually happened, but I don't think it did.
What
Surprisingly,
is it called again? Steadfast? No.
Steadfast.
There's a whole remember Roger. No. Who did it? Remember you have like a private where you wrap things around your fingers together, hands, your wrists.
If anybody can decipher what the hell she's talking about,
I know Mary Kate knows. Mary Kate, if you're listening.
I don't know what you're talking about. She did not have a secret wedding that we know of because she asked William to produce proof from Scotland that he was in fact free to be married. So if she did that, then she's working with more than we've been giving her credit for. That's pretty smart, right? Yeah. I don't know if she did though. She might have gotten married. We don't know. But anyway, William has to go away again. While he's gone, again, Mrs. Blandy's illness returns and Dr. Addington from Reading is brought in to see if he can help.
Okay.
When bleeding and brandy don't work,
oh my God,
there's really nothing more he can do.
Oh, to live in the 1700s.
I know. Mrs. Blandy becomes weaker and she passes away in the fall of 1749.
That's sad.
Her dying wish that Mr. Blandy let Mary and William be wed.
Oh, ouch.
Yep. So William is back in London at the time of Mrs. Blandy's death, and Mary passes along the news. William said, I'd love to return to Hart Street, but I need money. So Mary sends £15. Well, this time, William's biggest supporter, Mrs. Blandy, is no longer around, and I have to imagine that she influenced Mr. Blandy at least a little bit to keep the rude at bay, right?
Yeah.
After a short visit, Mr. Blandy puts his foot down, and with no word from Scotland still on the marriage being annulled, he kicks William out of the house and forbids him to see Mary ever again.
Oh my goodness. Drama.
Before his exile begins, though, Mary and William have one last meeting. And this is a meeting to form a plan for their precious wedding.
Confabulation.
William knows a woman in Scotland called a cunning woman.
I bet he does.
Yeah, he knows several women, actually. He probably has several children. But this woman is a cunning woman, which if you remember from Pendle Hill Witch Trials is like a good witch.
Yes. Okay.
Now, this woman, Mrs. Morgan, could secure him a love powder. Not a romantic love powder, but one that would allow for forgiveness. He would send it to Mary, and she would give it to her father. And this would thaw the cold feelings of resentment that Mr. Blandy had towards William.
Oh my God, it's going to be poison.
And put him in his good graces once again, and then they could be together.
Oh my God, I cannot wait for this plan.
Perfect plan. Now, I know this seems insane when you hear about it in present day. But remember, this is a time when spells and potions are a very real thing. And lots of times they're just herbal remedies that actually work.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
But think what you're comparing it to, like the science of today is bleeding and brandy. So
Exactly.
We have a lot going for us right now on the science side.
They can accidentally do things like, oh, have this ginger tea, it'll make your throat feel better. And it actually does.
Yeah.
Use this plant, it will help heal your burn, and it actually does.
There are some real things.
Everything is magic. Yeah. And so there's a lot of power put into these potions and these spells. And also we know from present day research that placebo is also very strong.
Yeah.
The placebo effect.
No doubt.
So I just want to point that out, that Mary's not absolutely a total crazy person to believe this. This is what's happening. Now, to further solidify Mary's beliefs, William was allowed to visit in the summer of 1750. I don't know why, but he let him. As you might expect, Mr. Blandy was cold towards his future son-in-law. And during the visit, William had love potion with him and promised Mary it would do no harm, only good if it worked. So he mixed it into Mr. Blandy's tea.
I guarantee it's poison.
Mary was very anxious that the powder might hurt her father, but for fear of the scheme being discovered, she didn't say anything and she let him drink it. To her surprise,
he starts foaming at the mouth.
No, Mr. Blandy started to become warm to William again. His spirits were raised and he was kind to him again.
Was it alcohol?
Just like the days of old. So William is pumped. Mr. Blandy's coming around. He's going to marry. That dowry's in his checkbook, you know. Mary, at this time, finds out that William has a mistress, a different one than the one from London.
Perfect.
Yeah, she finds some letters. Yep. So Mary's like, I'm going to need that love potion now, buddy. She asks him to leave.
Forever.
William puts on a show and manipulates Mary's heart by reminding her of her mother's dying wish.
Wow, that's fucked.
Mary relents and allows William to stay. He stayed on until November, when word of his own mother's illness prompted him to return to Scotland. Mary paid for his trip to Scotland, FYI, but not before he saw the ghost of Mrs. Blandy in the house.
I'm sure he did.
As well as the spirit of Mr. Blandy, which he explained foretold that Mr. Blandy would die within the year. So somebody's setting the table pretty hard.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
This time, opium. Oh, sorry. Keep going.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into it. I have some theories. This time, Mr. Blandy basically says, you can't come back, William, until you are officially annulled or divorced or whatever. Like, don't even come back here until you have a paper in your hand that tells me you're free to wed my daughter. Like, you can't waste any more time. Mary passes along this message to William, and he's like, I got it. The powder's working. I'm going to Scotland, so I'm going to see Mrs. Murphy. Her powder's the best. This love potion is going to be in the works. Don't worry about it. William sends the love potion along with some Scottish pebbles for Mary, which were a common stone that you used in jewelry. So I think those were a gift. Nice. Along with the love potion. So accounts will range, but she either received this sometime between April and June.
Okay.
Of 1751.
God, this has been going so long.
It's been going for years.
Yeah, I'm out. Go back to the balls, girl.
Whenever the package was received, it included instructions from William for Mary to mix the potion into her father's tea each morning. As we know from previous cases of what you've been shouting from the rooftops since I started talking about this, previous cases of poisoning.
Poison!
It's either slowly over time or one huge dose. Yeah. So servants reported in the summer of 1751, Mr. Blandy started to suffer from digestive issues. He would not eat or drink for days, seemed to heal, and then become ill again.
When he ate or drank again.
Yeah. During these periods of illness, his food and drink were often left untouched. And on more than one occasion, a servant drank the untouched tea and coincidentally became ill for several days.
Yeah, seems like a coincidence.
You would think Mary might have some questions at this point once 2 servants become ill from drinking her father's tea. If she truly was like, this is a love potion.
Yeah.
That would make me pause.
Yeah, of course.
But nope. Instead, Mary complains to William in a letter that the potion is hard to mix into the tea, that it doesn't dissolve well and it's grainy. William responds with the ruse that the powder is to clean the Scottish pebbles and advises Mary to not clean the pebbles in water, but something thicker. Mary gets the point, and from then on switches from tea to porridge, or gruel, as they call it in those days. Now, this allows Mary to administer a much larger amount of the potion, and overnight, Mr. Blandy becomes unbelievably ill.
Oh, God. I don't want to die like that. I really don't.
The pharmacist came by to see Mr. Blandy, and Mary fed him more gruel that night.
No.
Guess what? Mr. Blandy gets worse, as you might expect. At first, his mouth felt gritty, he said, and then it started to burn. This was followed by extreme stomach pain, and his body started to purge the powder in any way possible.
I don't want to die like that.
It was a very long night for him and probably his chambermaid. To further point to the fact that the gruel was the weapon, when the leftovers were brought down to the kitchen, they were given to the same charwoman who'd become ill from the tea. Her name is Anne Emmett. I know. Poor Anne, right? She became violently ill. Which it's interesting because we're judging Mary for not making the connection, but the servants are also not making the connection.
That is weird.
And even if they don't understand how germs work, you would think that they might start to think,
Right.
They know how poison works. It's all over the place. Anyway, but like before, without any food, Mr. Blandy starts to improve slightly. Mary insists that more gruel be given to help him take the medication that the pharmacist had left.
No, you're killing him. Do you think she knows that she's killing him?
We'll get into it. But gruel is the most bland food one could possibly eat. It probably never made anybody sick because it's so boring. It's like oatmeal. So that would be the food you would probably give somebody if they needed to take medication with food. However, the maid in the kitchen starts to make a fresh pot. And Mary stops her.
Oh.
She wants to use the same pot from before. But it's been a few days.
That's gross.
Yeah. The maid, Susanna Gunnell is her name, is like, are you sure? Because that's disgusting and I can just make a fresh pot. Also, I tasted it and it doesn't taste great and my stomach hurts now.
Good.
Mary said, I'm sure, and used that gruel. Well, Susanna is the absolute hero and wasn't born yesterday.
She still made a new pot.
She didn't, but she, along with other members of the staff, take a closer look, and they can see that even though the powder dissolved better in the gruel than the tea, a white grainy substance had still settled at the bottom of the pot. So they preserve it as evidence. Susanna locks it up overnight and brings it to a neighbor the next day who takes it to the apothecary for testing.
So smart.
Isn't that unbelievable?
Wow.
Susanna takes it a step further and tells Mr. Blandy her suspicions, which you have to think about that.
Next level. Like, that's dangerous for her.
So dangerous. She could be accused. Of poisoning
be thrown
him.
out without a reference.
She could be destitute. She could be tried for this. This is putting her life on the line to try and save Mr. Blandy.
I wonder if they have a good relationship.
Unbelievable. Well, they must because Mr. Blandy believes her.
Yeah, I bet she's been working for him for a long time.
Probably. Susanna assumes that correctly that whatever is in the gruel Mr. Blandy's been eating probably came from William. And I think that's probably the piece where Mr. Blandy it clicks for him. And he's like, yes, of course. It also gives him an out to not fully blame his daughter, which is also smart of Susanna if she meant to do that or not. So Mr. Blandy actually confronts Mary. And there's some back and forth, but ultimately she goes and gets all the letters from William along with the stones and the potion, which is in a little packet, and she throws it in the fireplace.
God, I don't like Mary.
The maids, again, absolute heroes, pull it out of the fireplace when she leaves the room.
Baller.
I know. These women are like CSI in the 1700s.
I love it. Let's have a TV show.
Get me an evidence bag.
Yeah.
And the letters have burned, but the packet with the powder is still intact. Yes.
Send that to the apothecary.
Yeah, it goes with the pot. Sadly, despite the maid's efforts, Mr. Blandy continues to deteriorate because so much of this love potion has been given to him.
Yeah, his innards are like destroyed probably.
Yeah. At the pharmacist's recommendation, Mary again called for Dr. Anthony Addington, which is the same physician that treated her mother.
I need charcoal.
Dr. Addington was quick to diagnose this as a poisoning. Right out of the gate, he knew.
Yeah.
And there's not much he can do, which we know. I mean, I think he's been poisoned. We'll just have to wait and see and try to keep him comfortable. He did everything he could, and then he left Mr. Blandy to rest for the night. And on his way out, he told Mary that she better hope her father survives or else she would, quote, inevitably be ruined.
Yeah.
So he's very clear on what's going on here. He knows the story. At this point, I think she's saying, I gave him the love potion, and it was supposed to help him love William. It's like so messed up. Waiting for her father to survive, Mary wrote a letter to William that said the following, and it was published I saw it in the Derby Mercury, but it was in a bunch of papers at the time. She wrote, Dear Willie, my father is so bad that I have only time to tell you that if you do not hear from me soon again, do not be frightened. I am better myself. And lest any accident should happen to your letters, take care what you write. My sincere compliments. I am ever yours.
What?
That seems like she's really quickly warning William to keep something under wraps, right?
Yeah.
Now, once Mr. Blandy knows he's near death, he's in excruciating pain.
Oh, boy.
He describes it as if his insides are on fire and a fireball is in his stomach.
It's awful.
The Derby Mercury writes, the symptoms were pricking in his fundament and bowels. His mouth and nostrils were full of pimples, and his teeth rotted out of his head.
What the fuck?
Now, Mr. Blandy also knows that his daughter is the reason why, and he believes 1,000,000,000% that this is because of William.
Yeah.
And he actually says, poor lovesick girl, I forgive her. I always thought there was mischief in those cursed Scotch pebbles. He knows that she gave him the poison, and he forgives her.
Yeah.
He thinks this is all because of William's influence and doesn't blame his daughter at all. Well, even though Mr. Blandy forgives Mary, other servants and members in the household are like, yeah, Mary can't go in the room anymore.
No.
She's out.
Good for them.
Which is smart because they're trying to save him still. Until it becomes clear that Mr. Blandy is not going to survive.
Give him charcoal.
Then and only then do they allow Mary into the room to say goodbye. Mr. Blandy forgives a sobbing Mary who insists that the powder was given to her for an intent other than murder. Mr. Blandy tells her to be quiet and to leave the room because he doesn't want her to incriminate herself. Final effort to save her because he knows he's going to die. Can you imagine?
No, I cannot.
He's like, listen, you're going to zip it, lady. If what you're saying is true and you believe this, zip it.
Yeah, but then who else is going to be accused? The servants will.
No, she's saying she did it. She's just saying she did not realize that it was poison. Dr. Addington, in the meantime, has the evidence that the maids had secured. So he's got the packet and he's got the pot, both with the substance still in it, or remainders of the substance. He also gets a second medical opinion to confirm his suspicions, which is why I really like this guy.
He's thorough.
We're going to make sure that I'm right here. Let's call in somebody else. Once he gets that second opinion that Mr. Blandy is suffering from poison, they lock Mary in her room under house arrest.
Yeah.
And through tears, she begs to be let in to sit with her father or at least sit outside his door so she can talk to him, and they refuse. Francis Blandy dies August 14th, 1751. Now, upon hearing the news, Mary fainted.
Yeah, you killed him.
Once she recovered, she was beside herself. Although when witnesses were asked to describe her mental state, they all agreed her distress only seemed to be focused on what would become of her. Which, it's always an interesting observation, but grief is weird. And I mean, I don't know. You can't go by that. Tricky. I mean, that's a good question. What will happen to you, Mary? Yeah. It's something you should be worried about. And maybe she's not processing everything that's happened. She did, however, offer to pay servants to help her escape on 2 separate occasions. The servants are the absolute most solid human beings, though. They both said no.
Good.
They must have just been so loyal to Mr. Blandy. They were like, nah,
I'm sure.
we're good. But when Mary's door was left unattended, she fled home.
Yeah.
Now, this is a woman who's probably never even dressed herself.
Yeah. I was just thinking that.
She can't call the servants to help her. So she kind of like runs out of the house in this state of undress.
Oh, boy.
She doesn't have the hoop skirt in.
Yeah.
She's a mess. She looks disheveled. Word spread fast that she had escaped, and she was hunted down by a mob in the streets demanding justice.
Whoa.
Yeah. Seeing the commotion, Mrs. Davis, who's the proprietor of the Angel Inn, allowed Mary to hide out in her establishment to escape the dangers. Mary was distraught. She's dirty. She's bruised from stones being hurled at her.
Oh, my God.
Mrs. Davis sat her down by the fire, fed her some toast, and waited for the constables to arrive to return her home. While she was there, a couple was also in the inn when Mary barged in. Imagine that. Yeah. Lunch being like, whoa. She asked the gentleman there, what will happen? And he said, well, if you're innocent, then you'll be acquitted. But if you're guilty, then, he said it differently, but that's essentially. At the trial, this couple would testify that Mary's response was the following. Oh, that damned villain Cranston. My honor to him has been my ruin. But why do I blame him? I am more to blame. It was I administered it and know the consequence. Now, a lot would be said whether she said, I know the consequence or I knew the consequence, because how they interpreted this was, is this an admission of guilt from somebody who knew exactly what she was doing and knew the consequence? Or is this
she knows now
somebody who feels unbelievably guilty and understands now the weight of the situation?
Right.
Because just for fun, think about if she really didn't know that this was poison. Think of how
she's got to be
absolutely terrible she feels.
That.
Well, I mean, we'll get there, but I'm just saying, think about the guilt of how you would feel if you were like, oh my God,
horrendous.
I had no idea. I can't believe I believed this clumsy-legged man. Whatever, which I don't even know what that means, which is why I keep saying it. Like, what does that even mean? Are his legs like
not
too
a good
short?
dancer?
He must be too short for the times. I don't know.
Clumsy-legged or too tall?
No, they said he was short.
Oh,
yeah. Anyway, on the day she escaped, an autopsy was performed on Mr. Blandy, which was probably done in the kitchen, FYI, which only further confirmed the poisoning. And Dr. Addington concluded it was arsenic. So Dr. Addington had done an analysis of the two samples and sent them to a chemist for a second opinion to confirm it was arsenic. All of this, along with servants' statements, was enough to arrest Mary on August 16th. This meant that she missed her father's funeral. He was buried the next day by Mrs. Blandy. Now, in preparation for the trial, all of the doctors and anyone in and out of the house was deposed. Dr. Addington relayed the story that Mary had received the stones from William, although his last name, it's redacted in the newspapers.
Yeah.
And then the powder had been sent to clean the stones, right? Air quotes. And then on the 5th of August, that powder had been used not to clean the stones, but had been mixed with Mr. Blandy's food.
Yep.
Yeah. However, he did relay that Mary's story was consistent the entire time, which was that the powder was to make her father kind towards William and not with the intent of hurting him.
Right.
Dr. Lewis, who was the second opinion that Dr. Addington had secured at the time Mr. Blandy fell ill, also said basically the same thing.
Okay.
And then the surgeon who helped with the autopsy, Edward Nicholas, spoke of his findings. The Gloucester Journal wrote, in short, he never found or beheld a body in which the viscera were so universally inflamed and mortified.
Oh, poor guy. I'm terrified of dying this way.
Okay, well, easy on that tea. Elizabeth Benfield, a servant who I believed had passed away by the time the trial started, but they'd already deposed her, had sworn she had heard Mary say the following, quote, who would grudge to send an old father to hell for 10,000 pounds? That's what she said Mary said. However, the witness statement was not believed by everybody because Mary's defense team also came forward with statements that Elizabeth herself had called Mary a bitch and then wished that she'd climbed a ladder and fallen off.
Whoa.
It's a sick 1700s burn.
Seriously?
Yeah. Climb up that ladder and fall, see what medical help you get from that instant trauma. But maybe she said both things. Maybe she's like, this woman's mean, and I hope she falls off a ladder. But Mary's not really cut out for jail. And she didn't really have to go to jail, at least not the jail that everybody else had to go to, where
That's nice.
it's dirty, it's cramped, and you get, gruel with rats in it. She was allowed to pack the essentials, which for her
Oh boy.
was her most expensive teas and her own private maid, like an actual human being.
What?
She
Poor maid.
Brought another person with her.
Doesn't seem legal.
She was not restrained in any way, and she was served tea twice a day, gardened in the afternoon, and played cards at night, and was allowed to entertain guests.
What?
Yeah.
That's not jail.
No, not at all. Eventually, they did chain her ankle because there were rumors that Mary was just going to walk out the door, which I don't think she was ever planning on. She was like, this is quite nice.
No, it's pretty set up.
Yeah. But meanwhile, William was like, you know what? I think a trip to France might be timely. And he was not able to be charged along with Mary.
Because he was gone.
Mary was delivered an additional blow when she was informed that her father's wealth was not 10,000 pounds, but less than half that.
Yeah.
Rumors also started to go about town that Mrs. Blandy's death might have been suspicious because she became ill suddenly and then died from technically inflamed intestines, which could have been a billion things.
No.
And less serious, but probably more worrisome to Mary, was that people were saying she drinks, swears, and confabulates, which she did not approve of. So Mary gets a lawyer. She fires the first one because he says, I'm paraphrasing, but he basically says, I don't know how this could happen for such an ugly, mean dude. And she's like, get out. You're not my lawyer anymore. She hires another one, which is what I said at the beginning. He's like, this guy is so mean. Why? Like, why are you doing this? How are you being tricked by this guy? Have you seen his legs? Pamphlets outlining the case were printed nonstop. Portraits of Mary sold in the streets. Thousands of people gathered to watch Mary's fate play out in the courtroom. And at the time, trials were put on by the family of the victims, which ironically in this case is Mary.
Oh.
So instead, gentlemen in the area petitioned the Crown to pay for the cost of trial and to proceed with the charges anyway, which the Crown actually did.
Interesting.
Yeah. And the trial was a sensation.
Yeah, I bet.
The crowd was so loud at times that the judge could not be heard.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
They're like heckling and shit.
Of course, I picture a lot of gasping, like, oh,
Oh.
Of course, everybody is really interested in what Mary's wearing.
Yeah, Avi.
The Gloucester Journal lets the world know she is wearing a black bombazine sack dress with a veil. And then
I'm wearing Gucci today.
Right? And then they further describe her appearance, which the papers always nail in the 1700s. And they say, quote, she is between 30 and 40 years of age. So some real investigative journalism going on there. Like, could we not find out her age? Anyway, and though not reckoned a beauty, her face is agreeable, and her hair, eyebrows, and eyes are black. She is of middle stature, a genteel person, and her behavior is polite. So,
okay,
there you go.
Love it.
Yeah.
Put that on a Tinder profile.
Her eyebrows match her hair, which is really important. Throughout proceedings, Mary was adamant from start to finish that she had no idea the love potion was poison. In her statement to the court, it's very lengthy, but a part of it says, I had no evil intent in putting the powder in the water gruel, nor did I know it was a poisonous quality. It was put in to produce his love and not his death.
Okay, but when you kept seeing him sick,
I know, like when other people started falling around like flies, William, again, is conveniently out of the country, as we know, and he's going to stay out of the country.
Yeah.
And any letters from him, she burned. So, not her best moment.
Girly.
She did not pull an Anne Murray and save the letters like she should have. Mary's trial also made history by being the first trial where medical, scientific evidence of poisoning was used. Now, it's not the first time that this method was used, obviously. I mean, poison, we've talked about it a billion times. Tale as old as time for us. But there were no clear ways to actually test the tissues to determine the exact poison at that time. Those would come later. So often it was declared by observation or based on how the same food affected other people or animals.
Okay.
Dr. Addington, however, did a series of scientific tests with samples that Susanna had preserved.
Oh, God.
And I know this seems super basic, but this is groundbreaking for the times. It's 1750s. Because before they would literally feed whatever the person had ingested to another animal and then see what happened to the animal. Be like, oh, killed the animal, so it must be poison.
Mm-hmm.
So Dr. Addington took the substance from the packet and saw how it reacted in water. Most of it sunk and did not dissolve, which he then did the same to arsenic. Most of it sunk, none of it dissolved, which is why the tea was gritty.
Yeah.
He also burned a sample, which behaved the same as the sample of arsenic he burned, which is it forms a white smoke and it has a very distinct smell. So from that...
You shouldn't sniff it.
Right. From that, it smells like garlic, they said, which I was not expecting.
Yeah, but I feel like ingesting poison, no matter what form, is not great, but maybe it diffuses the poison.
Well, a little bit of arsenic is not a big deal. Remember, they used arsenic medicinally, which is why I wondered too, maybe when William put that arsenic in the tea the first time, maybe it was just enough that it acted like a pain medication for him.
Yeah.
And that's why he was suddenly feeling better.
Right.
I don't know. But obviously there would be questions today, are these the only substances that do this? Right? Have you tested all of the possible chemicals? Could a harmless plant also smell like garlic when you burn it?
Right.
Was it garlic? Like there would have been a defense team would have poked holes into this. But at this time, this is unbelievable. And it was certainly enough to prove to the jury that Mary Blandy was guilty. Okay. The jury took only 5 minutes to come back with a verdict before the judge delivered his message to Mary. Quote, "You are convicted of a crime so dreadful, so horrid in itself that human nature shudders at it. The willful murder of your own father. A father by all accounts the most fond, the most tender, the most indulgent that ever lived. That father with his dying breath forgave you. May your heavenly Father do so too. Nothing now remains but to pronounce the sentence of the law upon you, which is that you are to be carried to the place of execution and there hanged by the neck until you are dead."
Jeez.
Yikes.
Harsh.
After Mary was found guilty, the newspaper started teasing a full account of the case. The Western Flying Post writes of the upcoming edition, get ready to read it. We're going to have the full account. It says things like, "Useful to be read in all families. Some reflections from whence such unnatural acts in children, more particularly daughters, may arise, and probable means proposed for preventing them." So the papers are teasing this as like, this is a good story to read to your family around dinner time to make sure your kids don't kill you.
What the fuck?
While awaiting her execution, Mary wrote letters of mercy to everybody she knew. But there was no second chance.
Oh.
On April 6, 1752, at the age of 31, it's believed. So I did a little bit more research than the paper. Mary Blandy walked the steps to her death. She wore a black crepe dress, and black ribbons were used to tie her hands rather than rope. Before the noose was placed over the neck, she calmly addressed the crowd, which was thousands of people, and this is part of her statement. "Good people, give me leave to declare to you that I am perfectly innocent as to any intention to destroy or even hurt my dear father, that I did not know or even suspect that there was any poisonous quality in the fatal powder I have gave him, though I can never be too much punished for being even the innocent cause of his death." And then she continued to say that, to address the rumors that she had nothing to do with her mother's death at all.
Yeah.
And there was also another family friend who had died at the time, nothing to do with that as well. She then paid the executioner, which I guess was a common custom for a quick death.
Oh, well, bribery.
I know. She continued the climb and she stopped to say, "Gentlemen, do not hang me high for the sake of decency." Because Mary wanted to ensure even in her final moments that she maintained her modesty and nobody saw up her skirt.
Oh.
As the noose was placed around her neck, a handkerchief was pulled down over her face. Her hands had intentionally been tied in the front so that she could hold her prayer book. And it had been agreed upon that once Mary was done praying, she would hold out the book, and that would be the signal for the executioner. Mary Blandy died quickly and quietly.
God, this is brutal.
Much to the crowd's surprise, the 5,000 people there to witness Mary's death had been so moved by her composure and her final words that many of them started to openly weep.
Wow.
Second guessing if she was guilty.
Yeah.
Now, even though a warrant had been issued for William, he stayed on the run, insisting that Mary knew about it and was all in.
Fuck that guy.
I know. Karma found William, though, because only a few months after Mary's execution, he became inexplicably ill and was said to have died from fright when he saw the ghost of Mary Blandy, which was just a nurse coming to check on him. And he freaked out and he died. Probably of heart congestion, but they didn't, at the time they didn't know. He literally just started swelling.
Okay.
And they didn't know what the cause of it was. Today, Mary's ghost is said to haunt the Oxford Castle where she was held prisoner and the Angel Inn, the one place that provided her safety from the murderous mob. So that is the story of Mary, a different kind of poisoning. What do you think?
It's definitely not our tale as old as time poisoner. It's really tough. It's hard to know, like, is it just manslaughter or was it intent to kill? Part of me wants to believe her, but then part of me is like, how can you not connect the dots?
I know, that's the thing. I think the lack of connecting the dots, also her letter to William, make me think that she knew something more than she was letting on about it just being an innocent love potion.
You're right. Actually, that letter is probably pretty convicting.
But I also don't understand the point of it, because even if he's dead, William's still married. She seemed to know that piece, right? That was when he's like, let's just run away, let's elope. She said, give me proof that you're free to marry, and I will. And that's what makes me wonder, wise enough to understand that piece. So how does she think Mr. Blandy being out of the way is really going to change anything? He's still married to Anne.
Maybe she started caring less about it? I don't know.
But yeah, it could also be that when she actually saw it in her face and it was happening, she just felt deep regret and remorse.
Yeah.
That could also be, even though she had agreed to it before, maybe she just felt terrible and realized that she'd made a terrible mistake. But people debate about it still, whether she knew or whether she didn't. Either way, it's a terrible story.
Yeah. Oh, that's brutal. Yeah, that guy, I mean, we talked about Frances needing to just let her marry earlier, but letting that guy into your life, just ugly and mean.
Yeah, basically. It just seemed like his outward appearance was, because this was all in retrospect, was probably described with his true character in mind, and that really colors how people view you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if he had been the sweetest, most gentle man, I'm sure that the descriptions would have been much more considerate, but they were like, he's the meanest.
Yeah.
He's the absolute worst, and yuck. So I don't know.
Oh,
well, I think she probably knew, because I think she's too smart not to, but
yeah, I'm surprised they didn't pull the woman card, and she was like, oh, she couldn't have known. She's too gentle.
Yeah.
The fairer sex.
I think it was just so blatant. And the servants really saved some stuff. They really saved the day here, because they preserved all that evidence.
Yeah, they were amazing. I want a TV show with them being the detectives.
Yeah, they were pretty awesome. But what are your last words?
I have two.
Okay.
One.
Any day now.
I really appreciated the thoroughness from the doctors, especially such an early time.
Right.
And I think that's a lesson for today in any profession, especially ones that concern other people's lives.
Yeah, get second opinions and
cool.
Push the boundaries.
Double check your work.
Of test, right? He was like, I'm going to really try to be thorough here, because a woman's life is on the line.
Yeah, exactly. And it matters. And two, I don't know how many times we said it, fucking better to live today, because good Lord.
Yeah.
I mean, the treatments you get back then.
I mean, you have to eat gruel for starters. So
yeah. I mean, I do eat oatmeal a lot.
But they said gruel's not really oatmeal. It was described as watery enough that you could also drink it.
Yeah.
So it seems like a bland smoothie.
Stop it.
Well, that's what it was described as.
Gross.
No.
Oh, and then I have 3.
Oh, yeah.
Please don't poison me generally to the public, because I don't want to die like that.
Yeah. Go ahead and don't send her any teas. She's all set.
Oh, God.
But we'd still have your recommendations for her to purchase safely on her own.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. And who should listen?
Oh, man. Prospective brides and grooms. Make sure you have a good partner and they're not
currently married secretly.
Yeah. Secret marriages are never a good sign in any way. This is not good. Make sure everybody's being honest with each other. Daughters, mothers, fathers. Let's throw in some nieces.
Yeah. Always get those nieces.
Bring back the niece.
Yeah.
And then I'd say doctors. This is a good one for you.
Dr. Addington.
Yeah.
That's why I also don't, because how thorough Dr. Addington is, that's why I don't believe Mrs. Blandy was poisoned. Because Dr. Addington seemed to know right away. that Mr. Blandy was, and he didn't have that
Right.
suspicion for Mrs. Blandy. And also, Mrs. Blandy was William's biggest ally.
Yeah.
He wasn't
You wouldn't want him
around.
to go away.
He wasn't like in the picture. He was traveling. I just don't think that she.
No.
I really don't think she did. Even though
I don't either.
I do think she knew that something was amiss here. I don't think she hurt her mother.
Yeah, I agree.
But anyway, well, yeah. Poor Mary.
Oh man.
Poor Mr. Blandy,
Francis.
really. Francis, yeah. But for her to have so much composure at the time of her execution, I was actually surprised by that.
Yeah, that was surprising.
It turned the crowd. They felt terrible once they saw that happen. Only she knows, right?
Right. That's it.
She's the only person who knows if she really knew or not. So we're never going to know. But
never.
You can find us on all of the platforms at
Tea Time Crimes.
You can email us at
teatimecrimes@gmail.com.
Please rate, review, like, subscribe, send us recommendations via email for teas and crime. And thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.